In the world of politics, few figures are as polarizing and endlessly discussed as Donald Trump. His presidency, marked by controversy and a whirlwind of media frenzy, captivated not only the American people, but the world. However, what was happening behind the scenes during his time in office may be more alarming than we previously imagined. Now, one of his former closest allies, Omarosa Manigault Newman, a former White House aide and contestant on The Apprentice, is breaking her silence once again. Omarosa's latest revelation paints a troubling picture of Trump's mental acuity during his presidency. The woman who once stood loyally by his side is now sounding the alarm about the mental state of her former mentor and hero. What she has to say will shock you. Trump, she claims, was not the calculating mastermind the world once believed, but instead someone increasingly incapable of recalling vital details, constantly stumbling during important moments. And as Trump gears up for another potential presidential run in 2024, these revelations couldn't come at a more critical time. Omarosa's first-hand account is not merely the critique of a disgruntled former employee, but a deeply troubling insight into the potential dangers of an unhinged leader running the country. As the 2024 election approaches, her words ring even more ominously, leaving many to wonder, is Donald Trump truly fit to lead the nation once again? Let's dive into the heart of her shocking confession, which offers a disturbing glimpse into the chaos that lurked behind the walls of the White House. Omarosa, from loyal apprentice to outspoken critic. Before we explore Omarosa's damning confession, it's important to revisit her history with Donald Trump. Omarosa first rose to prominence on The Apprentice, Donald Trump's reality TV show that turned her into a household name. On the show, she quickly earned a reputation for being ruthless, cunning, and willing to do whatever it took to win. This image served her well, not just on television, but later in her career as Trump's confidant and a prominent member of his inner circle. Omarosa's ascent to political power under Trump was nothing short of remarkable. Once a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice, she eventually secured a high-profile position in the Trump administration, becoming Director of Communications for the Office of Public Liaison. It seemed like the perfect pairing. Omarosa, the shrewd reality TV villain, and Trump, the bombastic showman-turned-politician. But like many of Trump's relationships, this one soured as well. In December 2017, Omarosa resigned or was fired, depending on who you ask, from her White House role. Soon after, she began sharing her side of the story, first in interviews and later in her explosive tell-all book, Unhinged, an insider's account of the Trump White House. While her initial revelations about Trump were jaw-dropping, it is her recent statements about Trump's declining mental state that are raising fresh concerns. The decline of a president, Omarosa's eyewitness account. In a recent video, Omarosa recounted disturbing instances from her time in the White House, claiming that Trump's mental sharpness deteriorated rapidly after his first year in office. According to Omarosa, the once keen businessman who could rattle off complex figures and details during his time on The Apprentice was a shadow of his former self by the time he was in the White House. Donald was unable to recall basic figures, Omarosa said. He would forget the names of his own cabinet members, and during briefings, he often struggled to retain key information that he had been given just moments before. This alarming decline, she noted, was not just a few isolated incidents, but a pattern of behavior that only worsened as his presidency progressed. Perhaps the most chilling part of Omarosa's confession is her description of Trump's behavior during key policy discussions. We'd be preparing him for important speeches, but when the time came, he'd completely forget what we had just discussed. Instead of addressing policy issues, he'd go off script, attacking his opponents or deflecting the conversation entirely, she said. This tendency to pivot and lash out is something the public has seen time and time again in Trump's interviews, speeches, and debates. Her claims suggest that by the end of his first term, Trump was no longer in full control of his own faculties. He couldn't remember key details about the economy, immigration, or crime, issues that were central to his platform. "This wasn't the Donald Trump I knew from The Apprentice," she said. But if Omarosa's claims are to be believed, Trump's mental decline was far from the only concern. She hinted at deeper, more troubling behaviors that paint a portrait of a man increasingly out of touch with reality, yet still wielding the immense power of the presidency. Behind the scenes of chaos, Trump's White House deterioration. While Omarosa's revelations are shocking, they are not entirely new. During his time in office, there were numerous reports of erratic behavior from Trump, with insiders leaking details about a chaotic White House atmosphere. However, what makes Omarosa's account different is her proximity to Trump. As someone who had an intimate working relationship with him, her observations carry weight, and they corroborate earlier reports of Trump's strange behavior. According to Omarosa, Trump's impulsiveness and erratic tendencies were exacerbated by his inability to focus. In meetings, he would become easily distracted, often derailing important discussions with tangential rants or personal grievances. As she describes it, Trump's mental state seemed to deteriorate under the pressure of the presidency. "The job was too big for him," she said bluntly. These revelations raise important questions about Trump's decision-making abilities during his time in office. If Trump was indeed struggling with cognitive issues, what impact did this have on his presidency? Were major policy decisions made without a full understanding of the facts? And if so, what does that mean for the country, especially now as Trump positions himself for another run at the White House in 2024? Omarosa's account also sheds light on Trump's obsession with loyalty. As his cognitive decline became more apparent, he reportedly grew increasingly paranoid about those around him. He started to question the loyalty of everyone, she said. If you disagreed with him or tried to correct him, you were out. This paranoia, combined with his declining mental state, created a toxic environment where only the most sycophantic aides survived. Media and public reactions, Omarosa and the Trump detractors. It's easy to dismiss Omarosa as just another disgruntled former employee seeking her 15 minutes of fame, especially given her history of sensationalism. However, her claims about Trump's mental state are not without precedent. In fact, they echo the concerns raised by numerous other former Trump associates, including his former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen. Cohen, much like Omarosa, has built a post-Trump career out of criticizing his former boss. In his book Disloyal, Cohen paints a similarly grim picture of Trump's mental state, describing him as impulsive, erratic, and unfit to lead. These accounts, when taken together, create a disturbing portrait of a man who is not only unqualified for the presidency, but potentially dangerous due to his declining mental faculties. Critics of Trump have long speculated about his mental health, with some even calling for a formal cognitive evaluation. During his presidency, there were frequent discussions in the media about whether Trump was showing signs of dementia or another cognitive disorder. These discussions were often dismissed as partisan attacks, but Omarosa's first-hand account adds new fuel to the fire. What makes Omarosa's revelation even more potent is the timing. With less than 3 weeks to go until the 2024 election, her words are certain to have a significant impact on the small but crucial slice of undecided voters. The stakes are higher than ever, and for those who may have once supported Trump, these claims could be the final nail in the coffin. Omarosa's shocking confession about Donald Trump's mental state is a wake-up call for the nation. While her motivations may be questioned, the substance of her claims cannot be easily dismissed. If even half of what she says is true, then Trump's mental fitness must be seriously examined before the 2024 election. As the country faces the possibility of a Trump resurgence, voters must ask themselves, can we afford to put someone in the White House who may no longer be mentally capable of leading the nation? Omarosa's account, combined with the mounting evidence from other former insiders, suggests that Trump's decline is real and the consequences could be catastrophic. With the election fast approaching, the public must weigh these revelations carefully. Omarosa, once Trump's ally, is now one of his most vocal critics, and her warning is clear. Donald Trump is not the man he once was, and his mental state could be a threat to the future of the country. Whether voters heed her warning remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, Omarosa's words have left a lasting mark on the political landscape, and the debate over Trump's fitness for office is far from over. In the end, it is up to the American people to decide whether they are willing to take the risk of putting an unhinged leader back in power.